For J6 Patriot News, this is Tim Rivers. As we approach the anniversary of January 6, 2021, we reflect on what this year has wrought upon American freedoms and justice. Those who participated and protested the election that day were treated to a taste of tyranny, and many remain American political hostages, held in the deep state gulags across our republic or awaiting trial for exaggerated and fabricated crimes against the state. Often, these patriots communicate from their prison cells, and their texts and their calls and letters convey the damage this government has inflicted upon these men and women, over 700 strong across the republic, and that number grows, and their families are not immune to the damage. The letters are almost always full of declarations of faith and fealty to America and to God, and they profess their gratitude for those who write and support them, and their faith in each other and their Maker. And each night, they sing their nation's anthem together in solidarity with patriotic Americans everywhere. But there was one letter which was not like the others. It was written from inside one of the worst jails in the nation, the Washington, DC CTF, written as a group by many of the J6 political prisoners being held there. The letter was not addressed to me this time, but to the American public. It was meant for those who profess love for our nation and our Constitution, and also for those who have merely observed the crisis of our nation and heritage and stood by silently. It was a message of fire and fury, and of despair and hope, and it was addressed to all of us, the American people. Hear their words now in the voices of actual January 6th defendants, political prisoners to the cause of freedom and justice, and heed their message. I'm proud to present the letter to America.
Dear America, oh my beloved, sweet America, from what a lofty place you have fallen. God once shed his grace on thee, but now, no longer. You have abandoned all you believed in, traded your gold for ash. In your servile slumber, your ideals and values were ravaged, repeatedly violated by those that ignored your half-hearted objections. In the name of peace and civility, and from the comfort of your gluttony and greed, it is you that has allowed the fabric of this great nation to be torn. Shame be upon you, for this is your doing. For every line drawn in the sand, you have allowed them to cross without contest.
Now, 245 years after greatness was forged in blood and ink, you have allowed the fruits of your apathy to ripen for harvest. The elites and globalists have undermined all you hold dear, and as a result of your fear, your lust, and your laziness, our continual existence is now held under the thumb of those who espouse tyranny. My commiseration I save for those young and unborn Americans, your offspring, who shall never enjoy the liberties that you cast aside in the interest of maintaining your pitiful, subservient lifestyles. It is for them which I reserve my sympathies, for they shall never know freedom.
The sun is now set upon America, and night has now fallen. Whether dawn shall find her again, or rise upon a new communist nation, is the burden that rests solely upon your shoulders. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? The time has come for Americans to prove that their values are more than mere words in the wind, that their beliefs remain steadfast with resolve. Further inaction will breed further despotism to encroach. On that day, my pity will be held in reserve for those who have earned freedom, or those who will never have the opportunity to know it.
It is in this dark winter where we find ourselves being cast. They have torn your families asunder, convinced you to murder your unborn lineage. They've taught your children to embrace sexual deviance, mutilated their bodies without your consent, and manipulated their minds to reject morality in exchange of selfishness and perversion. It is your children that have taken up arms against this nation. embrace a black bloc ideology, and unleash violence upon innocents and authorities alike. That self-same philosophy of anarchy and hate has systematically indoctrinated your children with the educational system that are funded by taxes excised from you. And thusly, it is you that has paid for America's downfall. For whom then shall you lay the blame? For it is your tolerance and defeatism that has allowed this tragedy to befall this nation.
Why then should I feign astonishment that you would enable, encourage, embrace the treatment we as strangers have endured at your hands? It is your labor that has directly funded our wrongful incarceration, the violation of our civil liberties, and the violence that has been enacted upon us. That fateful day on the 6th of January, this year of our Lord, 2021, we, the patriots that answered our country's call, were unabashed as we stood shoulder to shoulder in solidarity to protest the electoral process being usurped from Americans by the tyrants that remain hell-bent on your enslavement. Your Stockholm Syndrome has been systematically cemented sufficiently so that our abuse and mistreatment is met with resounding applause. For 12 months now, this travesty has been permitted to persist by your silent consent.
We stood peacefully that historic day, ushered onto the grounds of the People's House in unison, and were then assaulted by those whom we had once embraced. As the conflict ensued, the melee that was initiated by the authorities soon spiraled into the slaughter of 4 innocents. It is the same authorities that then investigated themselves and found themselves blameless. It is you, America, that has tolerated this injustice and allowed it to prevail. The blood of those 4 innocents is on your hands as the result of your silence.
The responsibility is yours alone for permitting us to remain incarcerated illegitimately on your behalf. They came in the dark of night, forced their way into our homes with rams, threw explosives, pointed guns at our children, and dragged us screaming from our loved ones for merely showing the audacity to stand up for your rights. Virtually all of us abducted in this manner behaved peacefully on the 6th, and most of those who did violence felt compelled to act in the defense of those women and elderly that were brutally executed by those unprepared, incompetent fools that you employ to safeguard this nation. As a result of the violence enacted upon us that day, we remain abducted, held hostage at your behest. That plight persists unabated by those who are your neighbors, veterans, teachers, business owners, pastors, firefighters, medics, police, and parents. We stood for America while you slept in ignorance and are continuing to suffer at your hands.
Since our abduction, we've had our civil liberties violated. We've been beaten, maced, malnourished, held in appalling conditions, been medically neglected, mentally abused, held in solitary confinement. Our food is often inedible. The water tainted with rust. The air contaminated with black mold from improper maintenance. We suffer these conditions indefinitely while murderers, rapists, and school shooters are set free on bond. As this miscarriage of justice continues, the corrupt liars have perpetuated this tragedy from the purloined dais of democracy, persist in eroding the foundation of our nation. They violated our nation's sovereignty, bankrupted America and your children's future, surrendered to our terrorist enemies and equipped them, left our citizens and allies behind as hostages, bombed children, forced you to endure unwanted injections in order to work, closed down your businesses, locked you down in your homes, brainwashed your children, and encouraged violent mobs to burn your country to the ground.
When will you stand up, America? How far is too far? This farce will not end itself. Tyranny never surrenders the power it takes. You, America, have allowed your freedoms to be taken from you. For too long, you have left your fate in the hands of others, unwilling to stand for yourself. We, the undersigned, do charge you with the mantle of taking your own destiny onto your own shoulders to carry that burden and set this nation on the true and right path. The time is now, America. You must act or surrender in servitude for all time. The choice is yours, and you must choose now. Signed, the political prisoners of January 6th.